I've taken this picture from Google. It applies equally to AWS. And basically to do that, all you need to do is change the name from folders to OUs and from projects to accounts. Within our organization, starting at the root node, sorry, we can have multiple levels. Okay. Those levels, as you can see on the left, go down to level N, and we can get more and more specific as we go. Now, both cloud providers recommend not making this too complicated unless you really, really need to. But the more levels that you add in here, the more hassle you're going to have in the long run trying to manage it. The OUs and folders can be nested, but they're best used when you're applying your policies and your permissions to those. Things like, for example, blocking users from using regions that you don't want to use, or blocking development teams from using X1 instances in AWS or T2Ds in Google. You want to try to make sure that you're allowing the teams to experiment without going too crazy, putting in a few guardrails. But the real benefit of setting this up is when we come down to our projects and our resources, or accounts in the case of AWS. I've tried to settle on the word scope. It's what we use in our console to define either an account or a project ID. The resources that we're running, so whether that be a virtual machine, a network, whichever of the services, are always limited to a single account. Okay, they can be shared across multiple accounts, but they're running and being built in a single account or scope or project. Those scopes can only belong to a single OU or folder. So although we can nest things, we're always stuck with this single dimensional view. Now, back when I used to work for AWS, there was talk about changing this and having multiple dimensional views, one for billing and another for project permissions and so on. That hasn't ever happened, and I don't know if it's still on the roadmap. But generally speaking, when we're organizing this, we want to try to focus more on the organizational, operational design as opposed to the billing. So we don't want to put here that maybe folder A is going to be cost center 1 and folder 2 is a subpart of the cost center. We can get those details another way. It's much easier to do it differently. What we want to try to use is, again, going back to our business scopes, we might have a department, and then under that, we might have a workload name, and under that, we might have dev, test, and prod. You might alternatively have prod and test at the top level, and then under that, have your individual application names. Use these for doing your permissioning and security.